Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
Positronic Hypersonic.
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the season 2 premiere of The Last of Us on Max. The episode was called Future Days, and as it starts, a group of fireflies, which of course were featured in season 1, it's an activist group that coalesced after the world went crazy with infected people, lament the deaths of some of their members at Joel's hands and want to find and kill him, or at least Abby does. Abby, of course, being the second playable character in The Last of Us Part 2. 5 years later, Ellie, the female lead in the Last of Us game series, is fight training with a fellow survivor at a Wyoming survivor town, and she wins. Later, Joel talks with Ellie's best friend, Dina, as he's fixing a circuit breaker, and she asks him why Ellie is mad at him, but he plays it off as her having growing pains in her young adulthood, which are brushing up against his authority. Meanwhile, Ellie hones her sniper skills with Joel's brother, Tommy, by shooting at distant infected people before she's told she's being taken off her regular, more risky patrol duty because she'd been a bit reckless recently, but she protests and is allowed to stay on patrol duty. Joel then has a session with the town therapist whose husband he killed and whom he pays in marijuana before telling her about how Ellie basically ignores him, which the therapist says is boring, before telling him she knows he's keeping something from her and how she's very angry with him over her husband's death, which he caused, even though she knows he had no choice. Joel then confesses to having killed the fireflies to save Ellie, which Ellie doesn't know. Ellie then goes on patrol with Dina, whom it seems she's attracted to, and others, but the two of them go off on their own to follow a blood and carcass trail against their patrol leader's wishes. And soon, they find themselves in an abandoned market building hunting clickers, and they each kill one before Ellie falls through a floor and has to find her way out of the market. But the doors are padlocked, so it seems that she can't leave through any of the doors, but she was carrying a shotgun and a handgun, so I was a little confused about that because in some games they literally have you get past locked doors or padlocked fences by shooting the lock or shooting the chain. So why is this adaptation of a video game not incorporating that mechanic? Anyway, she soon finds herself having to chase down an infected person trapped in there with her, which seems to be more intelligent than the infected that they normally encounter, and whom soon attacks her and bites her before she kills it. Ellie, of course, is, as far as we know, immune to the infection, so the audience knows she's going to be okay. When she and Dina tell what would seem to be the town council what happened, they seem concerned about there being at least one smart infected. Later at a New Year's Eve party for the new year 2029, Dina takes Ellie out on the dance floor for a slow song during which she pulls her very close, after which they smooch. And when one of the townspeople calls them dykes, Joel pushes him to the ground, which pisses off Ellie, who says she doesn't need his help. And then later, she doesn't speak to him when she returns home. As the episode ends, the group of fireflies from the opening of the episode emerge from the woods some distance from the town and see its faraway lights before continuing to head toward it, intent, of course, on finding and killing Joel. And that's where the episode ended. So I really, really enjoyed this show last season. I thought it was very faithful to the games, which I also enjoyed quite a bit. I thought the acting was fantastic. I thought the drama was fantastic. The action was fantastic. It's just a really, really good show. So I've been looking forward to season 2. And once again, I think that this season is looking good. The first episode wasn't anything fantastic, but once again, it's very faithful to the game, and the performances are fantastic, and, the atmosphere is fantastic. So I enjoyed it quite a bit. It seems like they're taking it a little more slowly than the game, because in the game, the Fireflies find Joel almost at the beginning of the game. At least that's how I remember it. And I didn't expect him to survive the first episode. So that was interesting. But overall, I thought it was just kind of good, not great. And there were a couple things that made me kind of go, wait a minute, what? For example, when Ellie is fight training with another survivor in the beginning, he's much taller than her. And, she ends up subduing him. And I thought that was a little bit not realistic. I mean, even being 5'9" and 325 pounds, I know there are female martial artists and female members of the military that could kick my ass. So, it's not that I thought it was super far-fetched, but she's not a martial artist or a member of the military. She's just a kid that, maybe got some fight training in the last couple of years of her life because she lives in a zombie apocalypse, basically. So I didn't think that was terribly realistic, although the guy did apparently pull his punches, as it were, according to the guy who was observing the training session. So I think they might have tried to explain it away, but I didn't think that made the most sense. But, it wasn't a deal breaker for me. Then the other thing that I thought was strange, I mentioned earlier, was that she's trapped, quote unquote, trapped in this building where all the doors are, chained shut with a lock, but she's carrying a shotgun. And there are literally games, and probably in The Last of Us, I don't remember for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me, where your character has to get through a fence that's locked by a chain and a lock or something, and they literally do it by blasting it with a shotgun. So it's like, why couldn't she have done that? But I don't know. I guess that's where willing suspension of disbelief comes in. Other than that, I didn't have any issues with it, and I thought it was a pretty solid episode. Now, this is normally where I would wrap up the video and say, I'm going to go now, I'll be back next time, but I have to talk about something else, and that is the fact that not everybody thought this episode was even good. In fact, Cosmic Book News published a review giving it a 1 and calling it garbage. Now, this isn't unusual for Cosmic Book News, which is headed by Matt McGloin, because he's always dumping on stuff to the extreme. Something that's not very good, he automatically calls it garbage, like gives it the lowest possible rating. Like, it's not good enough to say, not only wasn't this a 10, but it wasn't even a 6, it's a 1. He's very hyperbolic, and he just likes to trash things, over the top. And, he's one of those anti-woke people, which, I have no tolerance for. And among his complaints about this episode was, well, he had several complaints, but they all came under the umbrella of, to him, the show is woke and the producers are trying to push an agenda. And his examples of that are, they had a 90-pound woman defeating a much bigger man. And I talked about that. Yeah, okay, it's a little far-fetched, but they kind of explained it. So it's not an agenda. It's just something they wrote that doesn't completely make sense. But they're not doing it on purpose to push any kind of an agenda about women being as strong as men or stronger than men. That's in his imagination. He didn't like the fact that the person who yelled at Ellie and Dina for sharing a gay kiss in the middle of a family party was an old white man. Because people like Matt McGloin can't be happy unless all the assholes in a show or a movie or a book are either a person of color or a woman or gay. If the bad guy or the asshole in any situation is anything other than that, they can't be happy. So for them to be happy, the asshole has to always be not straight, not white, and not a guy. Otherwise, they complain about it. Another thing he didn't like was that Joel gets emotional during his therapy session and sheds a tear. Because apparently men aren't supposed to have emotions or ever be upset or ever cry. Or for that matter, go to therapy. And the other thing he didn't like was that when Abby in the beginning says she wants to go after Joel, a member of the group says, I don't know, I don't think we should do that. I don't think it's a good idea to start going after people. It puts us at risk. And that person was a white male, whereas the person who had all the aggro in the situation was a woman. And so in his mind, that's showing the woman to be tough and showing the men to be weak. And of course, it's a white guy. And so he not only has a problem with that, but it's something he feels they're doing on purpose, that it's not organic, that it's not just the way they happen to write it, that it's deliberate because they're trying to push an agenda. And, some of these same complaints were made about The Last of Us Part 2, but I think it's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. It's just a story, dude. Not every white dude wants to poke the bear, and depicting that doesn't make a show woke or agenda driven. And some women are very aggressive. So depicting that does not make the show woke or agenda driven. So it's just stupid that he complains about these things. And not only that, it's stupid that he then allows those things to reduce his rating of the piece of media, in this case, this episode, down to the lowest possible number except 0 or a negative number based solely on that. So he doesn't consider that the performances were good, that the atmosphere, was well created, that the character moments were well done. All of that goes out the window and the episode gets a 1. and gets called garbage because it had some dynamics in it that he didn't like, that he thinks are wrong think or wrong-headed. And it's just, it's pretty sad. Mr. McGloin! It's pretty sad. It really is. So I don't know if he sees this or gets wind of it, he probably won't even respond because these people that think this way are all cowards and have no backbone. They go on the internet, they say these horrible things, and then they barely respond to anyone who calls them out because they're chicken shit. And, they got a big mouth, but they won't defend their position. I have a big mouth too, but I'll defend my position all day long. Anyway, I like the show. I like the episode. I thought it was better than a 1. I think it was probably a 6 or a 7. And I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the season. For now, I'm going to get out of here. I'll be back with another video soon. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.